I've brought some notes like an amateur, but it's not because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's to keep me on track. Otherwise, we'll be here for like 4 hours. Okay? Before we begin then, so I want to just take a moment. Are you guys okay in there? To answer this in your head silently, you don't have to say it out loud, but who are you? Where does that who come from? Who told you you were you? Which parts of you did you choose? So as we think about who we are, and we kind of crack open the illusion of self-ownership, of how we think about our thinking, about ourselves, how do you construct you? Right? So before we get into all of that, my name is Darren, and does your name play a part in who you are? So for the youngsters here, what you probably don't know is that Darren means something. It means born on a council estate in the 1970s. Which is pretty true, right? But what we're going to talk about is why personality isn't real. And nothing I say tonight is going to be true. Nothing. It's, your opinion is equally as valid. I mean, yes, of course, I've got the PhD, but that doesn't mean anything. Your opinion is obviously just as valid as mine. So if you've got an opinion, a perspective, something you want to say, just say it. This is more of a conversation than a lecture. I'd rather you joined in. Is that okay? Yeah? If you fundamentally disagree, please say something. All right, so the first step in freeing a person from external chains is to emancipate them from the internal chains of false beliefs and ideals. So go back to what I said a minute ago. Who are you? What are your false beliefs about you? What do you believe that you know is not true about you? And if you know it's not true about you, is it part of your personality? So then again, if you don't believe it, it can't be part of your personality, surely. Anybody seen this before? Do we all have these characters in our brains, like numbskulls for those of my age who used to read comics? So maybe there's a researcher inside your brain, or there's an authentic you, or a dad, or a businessman, or a cross-dresser. Where's Ashley? or a fighter. Do we have these kind of characters inside our brains coming out, wanting to come out? Or do we perhaps construct them in the appropriate time? What do you think? That's the me bit, by the way, the philosopher, student, scientist. So, I created a theory called constructed development theory, and it looks at how we use these 50 shortcuts, and we're going to go through some of them. So there'll be an element of a little bit of psychology, science in this, but there'll be a lot of inviting you to give me your perspectives. But when it comes to how we construct our thinking based on things like internal and external. So if I said, let me pick on somebody I know, Jeff, your shirt, it's terrible, mate. It looks terrible. He said, you hear what he said? I like it. That would be an internal locus of evaluation. If he said, oh my God, Darren doesn't like my shirt, that would be an external locus of evaluation. Too much external, and you're moving towards therapy because you're more concerned about what other people think about you than what you think about you. So just quickly off the bat, if you were really, really internal and couldn't care what Darren thinks about your shirt, how does that thinking make you behave in any context? If you were really, really external and really took on board and subsumed yourself for other people's opinions of you, how does that make you behave in context? Does that make sense? You've got two polar opposite ways of just two of these cognitive shortcuts, internal and external. What, you turn off? Oh, sorry, is it feeding back? Yes, sir.
You said if somebody's looking too much to external, needs therapy. How about the one who looks too much inward?
Very good. So what we're going to be talking about is levels of thinking. Some people don't like the idea that there's a level here and a level here. And all it means is that you have a different kind of relationship with your own thinking. Up here, you've got a much more profound understanding of how you construct you in the moment and how you think, how complexly you think. Down here, you've got much more habituated patterns in how you think. And normally what you just said there is here. You've got a much more habituated, I don't care what you think. Robert Keegan calls it like a level 2 perspective. Whereas we're going to be, as we're all here today, we're going to be looking at 3, 4, levels 3 and 4. Might even touch on 5 if we can, if I can. So my theory doesn't treat personality as a fixed thing. Does anybody want to ask anything about that in the first off? Personality isn't real. It's, with enough self-awareness, it's a choice. What do you think of that? I can see your face. I'm looking right at you.
Darren?
Yes, sir?
Well, maybe again, is there a difference between personality and character?
Not really, if your character is defined by how you think. So how you behave, what comes before the behaving?
The thought.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're aware of your thinking in the moment and can consciously choose not to do something, that says something about your character, doesn't it? But the behavior would be deemed as your personality. So for me, the idea is that if we can stop, step back, and think about how we're about to do something, say something in the moment, that's something called really high dynamic intelligence, and we'll come on to that. Calvin and Hobbes, I use these guys a lot. I found out the other day that I have to pay £35 for every image I use. I haven't done it for this one. I'll do it next time, I promise. So what happens is you tend to then start to repeat what you've done, the things that become your character, your assumptions about yourself, you just repeat them. They become habits. And then you might mistake that for personality. Okay? So we had an authentic, can you see those hideous images? We had one of the little numbskulls on one of the first pages was about authenticity. We hear this a lot, especially on LinkedIn. Are you your authentic leader? Are you an authentic coach? Are you an authentic therapist? Are you your authentic self? Which one of these is the authentic Darren? Be kind.
Authentic on the day the pictures were taken.
So in the moment, on the day, that was the authentic Darren. So what you're saying is they're all authentic.
Yeah, because they're all unique.
Because
They're all unique.
I'm unique just like everybody else. So if you think about it this way, you've never really met yourself. You've only ever met your construction of you. And I agree with all of you. Each one is unique. Now, if you were to think about this, if I were aware and capable of constructing this Darren, go back 15 years, this Darren in the moment, and I was aware and able to construct that Darren and the hippie Darren, which my son looks just like this now, which is very annoying, and this one here where I look Indian, if I could go back and construct those in the moment, then perhaps it's none of them that are authentic, but the one doing the constructing is the authentic one, if we must use the term. So how do you construct you right now? I'll give you some parameters. Think about it, right? Every construction is optional. It just depends on whether you know what you're doing or not. Do you know what you're doing? How old are you?
12.
12. I literally have underwear older than you. So, if you had no memory of who you were yesterday and no name to anchor you to today, who would you be right now? If you had no memory of yesterday, who would you be today?
No one basically, because then I won't remember what I am and like who, like, it's like my friends and family.
Nice. Did anybody get a little bit of discomfort there? About thinking about if you didn't know who you were yesterday and you don't know what you're doing today, does the thought of not knowing who you are give you any discomfort?
Yeah.
When we get to the highest levels of what we're talking about today, you might understand how it would be, it's just easier not to think about yourselves as a personality, How often does your personality get you in trouble? That's mainly a question for me. I'm often in HR at work. I work at a university, so you can imagine how, you know, just one wrong word and all of a sudden you're in front of the VC again. This is one of the differences. What we're talking about here isn't really about intelligence. Are you good at school? Me neither. Right? We kind of mistake complexity for intelligence. It's not the same thing at all. Intelligence for me is about having a good memory, Brian. Right? But complexity is how you see and structure things around you. How many things can you pull in when you're making a decision? How many decision points in the moment can you use to inform your decision making? If you can only see like 4 or 5 things, but the person next to you can see 25 things to inform that same decision, which one is more complex? Yes, sir?
It depends on like how they see it, because if they see like the person sees 5 things, they might see the 5 things in detail. But if the person that sees the 20 things, they might see them like as just the things themselves.
Get out. So you're almost right, because if they see the 5 things in detail, that's probably 25 things, and they're really good thinkers. So what you're telling me is, what is your name?
Justin.
I'll remember, Brian. What you're telling me is that you are a complex thinker, because already you're telling, can you hear the way he's rationalizing and thinking about the thinking behind the things? He's not thinking about the thing, he's thinking about the thinking behind the thing. Am I okay with that? Mm-hmm. At 12, I didn't do that at 32. So we're talking about this more so than having a good memory and remembering what the capital of Afghanistan is, Jeff. Kabul. Exactly. Right, so what I want you to do is this. We're really talking about meaning making. We've already had a couple of examples of how we construct meaning. But let's just do it quickly. Who likes chocolate? Right? I want you to think about 3, 4, 5 words, adjectives, to describe what chocolate means to you. And then I'm going to ask you to tell me what they are in a minute. So just have a think for a second. What does chocolate mean to you?
Exploitation of labour.
Who else had exploitation of labour? Because that's what I'm going to do. Right, think about some words. Whatever it means to you. All right, who's got one? Comfort.
Luxury.
And the luxury. Who's got comfort? Who's got luxury? Oh, good. Any more?
Instant good mood.
Instant good mood. Dopaminergic pathway, exactly.
Superfood.
Superfood, not dairy milk. Not the one I eat. I mean, this is a good one. Did anybody else get superfood for chocolate? All right. Any more?
Treat.
Definitely. Hence my big fat belly. Now, we're just talking about chocolate, and none of us mean the same thing. So if you said to me, Darren, are you going to the shop? Yeah. Would you get me a bar of chocolate? I say, no, I don't know what you mean. And Jeff's like, what an idiot. But we've just established that with all the people in the room, we've all got a different meaning for chocolate. It's just chocolate. If we can't agree on what chocolate means to you and me and no me, how can we agree what other things mean? Who often gets misunderstood at work, at school, at university? Now, what we find is, anybody here done any psychology? Yeah? So when you've learned a bit of psychology, look at the words in the heffalump. This is Rumi's 6 blind people looking at me. And what we find is, psychology is about social construction. It's about how we all work together as a team and a community. But no, it's about personality. Well, actually, it's about emotional intelligence, which doesn't measure anything, by the way, but we'll talk about that. It's general intelligence, which is Spearman, G. If you've done psychology and you've learned about G, not everybody agrees with it, but they still put it in textbooks. Cognitive complexity, that's clearly the obvious thing that it really is. That's my area. And then what about metacognition? Metacognition is thinking about our thinking, which is what you did earlier. Very good. This is the problem with psychology. We all think our speciality is the real thing and is the answer to everything. When it can't be, Jeff, because it's my theory that's the answer. But in reality, that's psychology. There you go, that's the face I was looking for. But that's personality. That's you and me. Not you, because that'd be rude, but that's me. And then what we do is we end up getting books on Amazon and things about how personality is about introversion, passive, task-oriented, extroversion, active, relationships, and then they get deconstructed into colours, and you're more blue than red, or you're more red than blue. And the guy that wrote this was boasting about how red he was, and red isn't a good colour. Even the book says red's not a good colour, and he was saying how great it is that he's red. What is he not seeing about his own thinking that's just as important? What is he not seeing about his thinking that's just as important? Yes, sir?
You said that someone might be more red than like blue, but what if they're like a mix, like say a purple?
Well, I'm going to save you 12 quid, and you don't have to buy the book, because that's exactly what they say. What they say is, you're going to be blue with a bit of red. You're going to be red with a bit of green, or you're going to be all of them, which is a kind of a mauve colour. Yeah? You don't need to read the book anymore. You're already better than the author. Well done. But what I'm trying to get across is that I've already asked you about an internal and an external perspective. Yeah? So there are commonalities in how we do this thinking. But if you're... We'll come on to this in a little while. Does anybody think they're an introvert, by the way? Anybody here thinks they're an introvert? A couple. I'm surprised you put your hands up, but well done. Anybody think they're an extrovert? We have one extrovert. No shoes. Well done. Want a cup of tea now? Who's heard or ever done the Myers-Briggs type indicator? You heard of it? That's where we pretty much compartmentalize 8 billion people into 16 boxes. So I've got a note here. It says MBTI didn't tell you who you are. It told you which box you like to be trapped in. In essence, what I've done here is there's only 16 boxes. But if you added my awareness quotient scale to the MBTI, you would have 16 boxes at each level of my system, which would make it 600% more robust. I really should call them. I could probably make some money. What I'm saying here is that at AQ5, one of the lowest levels of my system, the INTJ isn't available. You can't do this combination INTJ at this lowest level. But you can maybe at 6 and you can at 7. And if you think about this, right, if you've done the MBTI, somebody who is a really complex thinker is capable of doing all of them at will, at choice. Does that make sense? Yeah? So when you did it, whenever you did it, you thought, well, actually, I don't do either. I can do both, and it depends on the context. And why do they never ask me if I can choose not to? Anybody done any psychometric testing? They never ask if you can choose not to, do they? You know, today I feel blue. Right? What does that mean? Could mean you're sad. Could mean you're cold. Could mean you're dating a Smurf. That's for the old people, don't I? Right? But this is the problem. The problem is that we're told what personality is. We're told what our type is. We're told how we're thinking. What does that create in our behaving? Thank you. And we act as if we are INTJ. I don't know what it means. I've forgotten. You know what I mean? But ISTJ. You will, if you're told you're ISTJ, you'll look it up and then you'll start acting as if you're ISTJ. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've heard of ocean, openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion again, neuroticism. This is the one that they're mainly based on. It's the 5 factor model. And when I was learning all this stuff, I'd go to the BPS conferences and they'd say, oh, we've done some research on 4 million people. And it turns out that openness maps really well to agreeableness. Of course it does. Why did you need to do a study on that? What they never tell you is, how do you do neuroticism? Can you, I'm picking on her on purpose, by the way. Can you show me how you do neuroticism? And I will do it the same way as you, and we can both be neurotic together. But when you ask them those questions, these are psychologists who are making a living out of psychometrics. And when you ask them, tell me how you do neuroticism so I can be neurotic, because I'm not neurotic, but I'd love to learn. They can't tell you. What does that tell you? They can't tell you, but what does that tell you? So what I did was, notice how the words don't actually map to the letters. Did you really notice that? Good lad. That's a more detail orientation. I didn't notice until this was already established, and I thought, I'm not changing it now. So what I did was to demonstrate that this isn't really what we think it is, that you can make the data say anything you want. Yes, including my own PhD, Jeff, of course. I created something called the hand-dry personality method. Why? Because any bloke in here who's been to a public toilet, you see lots of different ways that men dry their hands underneath the hand dryers, if they dry them at all. They've got to wash them first, right? So I made up the hand-dry personality method, unlike the overcompensator, the whisperer, the control freak, the free spirit. It means nothing. But think about this. If 10 people got hold of this and did a study on it, it will become reified, it will become cemented in psychology as a real personality system. And you're starting to picture why I think personality is not real. We've got some nonsense tests, we've got some nonsense data. What we're lacking, the only thing we're lacking is a little bit of self-awareness. That's a real thing, by the way. It's on my website. It's on LinkedIn as well. I got loads of people on LinkedIn. One person saying, oh no, this isn't true. You can't do that. Why was her thinking limited? And another bloke underneath it going, this is genius. Well done. It's neither. So you don't have to do this. But what happens to your sense of self when your habitual labels are removed? I am a mother. I am ambitious. I'm shy. I'm an introvert. I'm British. I'm a realist. What happens to your sense of self if we were to remove these? You can have the slides, by the way. So if you want to try it when in your own time, just write them down. Write down things that you believe about yourself. And then what would happen if you took them away? So the labels, even the labels, is a construction. I am ambitious. What does that even mean? I'm ambitious, but not in any way that most people think is useful. I want to do another PhD. What's the point? It's my ambition, not yours. You shut up. But you see what I mean? It's just a construct. It doesn't mean anything. If you are thinking about this now, and if you are thinking about something, did you choose it? And what I wanted to do is I wanted to show people that actually, if you think about this differently, because psychology suffers from the same as everybody else, every other arena, every other area. We think what's true is true. We just believe it because we're told it. Yeah? And it's not. And nothing's true. That's how I started this, isn't it? Nothing I say is true. Don't believe a word I say. How strong do you have to be to do that? The one on the right. Anybody ever found themselves here? Was it comfortable or uncomfortable? Why? Wrong. Exactly.
Everyone else is like thinking about what you said and then can judge you about that.
They can judge you about that.
That's like,
That's perfect. That goes back to what we said earlier about the internal, external. Now, back to the gentleman's point at the back. If I don't care about other people's perspectives on me, because if I know how I construct me, I also know that you specifically will construct me a certain way, and that way will always be wrong. Why? Because we're very different. So any construction you have of me is wrong. So we go back to the therapy question. I don't need therapy because I don't care what you think of me. I know some of you will have decent opinions, some of you will have other opinions, some of you will be almost right, but it'll still be wrong. And that's, from a therapy perspective, that's a really important understanding that however someone constructs you is wrong. If we're going to talk about personality being not real, then what do they think of your personality? What do people think of your personality? Don't tell me, I'm kidding. Right?
Darren,
You can jump in.
that we exist in isolation here, because I don't think we do. We're part of a system, we're part of a community.
System's good.
We're not just ourselves. So it's important to know what other people are thinking, because you've got to know how to collaborate with other people.
I'm seeing some nods.
That's just what comes to mind at the moment.
Can I add something to that?
Of course you can.
Because I don't think we can completely say we don't care about others. Nobody, I mean, you really have to be down there to say I don't care what others think about me or what I say or what I'm doing. We always.
Can I choose who? Can I choose who I care about? Of course I can.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, so I might care what some people think, but most of the time, I'm not really worried how people construct me.
You choose or you wish what they would think.
No, I don't wish.
I not choose. I know. I like. I would like Darren to think of good of me. Think good of me.
Why?
Why do I have to choose you? But I would hope that Darren would think good of me.
Why? What makes you hope it? What difference does it make to you if anybody doesn't think anything of you?
Ultimately, nothing. But still, we live. As Aidan was saying, we live in a society. We are not an island on our own.
So go back to my question earlier. Can we choose not to?
Not to.
That's just it. Can we choose not to? So, for example, we do live in, I like your system point. If we look at this systemically, it changes things. Now, you're all here because you share something in common, right? You have an idea, you have a principle, you have something that you want to do in common. You belong to a group, potentially. The fact that we're all under this wonderful gazebo, I really want one of these, by the way, means that there's a unifying reason we're here, and it can't be me. There's something else that's here, right? That might be the overriding factor that you want from a united community. But can you choose to step out of it and not do it? Can anybody here do that? Can you choose to step out? Yes, sir.
Just kind of like on that point of choosing whose opinion you care about, I guess. What makes you choose? Like,
That's a brilliant
how
question.
do you choose your people?
That's a brilliant question. That goes back to the internal external. For example, if Louise here works with me, if Louise said to me, Darren, your presentation was rubbish tonight, I'd listen to her because she's an expert in presentations and she knows what she's doing. Yeah. If my 17-year-old son said, Dad, your presentation was rubbish, I wouldn't listen to him, even though he's my son.
But even your 17-year-old son, could he not have, I don't know, different perspective to you in some cases?
He could, and he's wonderfully clever, and he would give me a reason why. But what I appreciate what you're saying in context. Now, could I choose to ignore him? So the point is, that's an internal perspective from me. Your question is an internal perspective. Do I give this person enough deference, enough credibility that I trust their opinion? What we're doing is saying, I trust their opinion. I want to trust their opinion, so I will give it to, which is answering your question. So it comes from the internal perspective. If I were too external, which we said earlier, and I automatically listened to Louise's point about my presentation being rubbish, it could really worry me. It could make me feel bad. And then my son just reinforces it by, saying I'm old and things like this to him. It could make me feel really bad. But do I give him any deference? In context, I can choose. And this is where we're going all night, by the way. It's our capacity to choose in the moment.
Justin also has something to say. I'll go.
Like how he said, like, you can choose who you want to, like, give you, like, advice. It depends on, like, how they're, like, to you, like, how, like...
Don't say like.
Like... how they are, like... Oh, my God. Just, like...
Kids do that, that's what we do. Change your thinking style, you change your personality. And this is what it looks like. On the left-hand side, what's the difference between the two images, first of all? So you've got a profile on the left and a profile on the right. And I've just picked a few cognitive shortcuts. So own, partner, observer. Own is my position, which we just mentioned. Partner is other position. And the observer is this meta position. So they, you know, which says, well, what are they, how are they getting on? What's their relationship like? What's the dynamic of their thinking? What's the difference between the two images there, the two profiles?
The owner is lower than the low dynamic.
Exactly. What else? I heard something over there.
More balanced overall.
That's exactly it. And that's all we're striving for. Can you choose not to? So on the left-hand side, for example, this person is phenomenally internal, which is what you asked at the back. And this is external. This gap is the problem. I really shouldn't do sideways, should I actually? Look, it's my whole nose is taking up the whole thing here. Internal, external. This person over here is balanced, which means they can choose between internal and external. This person cannot do an external perspective. They only think about their own thinking. They literally don't care what you think of them. Yeah, which goes down to being lower level thinking. So all of you are on the right tracks in how we're thinking about this. This is way more balanced. That's not. So this is high dynamic intelligence. That's low dynamic intelligence. And this is what it looks like. You know, you look through the lenses. You've got your internal, your sameness, your procedures, your caring for self, and that comes out at a specific AQ, awareness quotient level. Make sense? If you think of them as lenses. Yes, sir.
What if the person that made this like scale, they were like wrong about the whole thing, and then like people like
I gave a talk at Cambridge, and one of the guys in the audience said exactly that. What if you're wrong? That sounds like your PhD. Well done. How did I start this entire talk?
It's all wrong.
Yeah, none of it's true. None of it's true. But your thinking is absolutely spot on. Question everything. Which is actually my business for writing questionnaires. Question everything. The idea is this. If you go back here and you see these different cognitive intentions, cognitive shortcuts in how we think. Does anybody want to know what any of them mean? Should I give you any examples? Any ideas? So, for example, towards and away from is about how we manage risk. Who here is really risk averse? But you're aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Can you choose to be goal oriented?
Yeah.
Are you lying?
As in,
Can you personally choose to not be quite so risk averse?
I guess it depends on the context.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Mistakes, like if something's really high stakes, I'm more likely to be risk averse.
Everybody the same? Because there are people who don't care about the risk and they will just go for the goal, ignoring all the pitfalls along the way. That would be somebody who would be massively towards oriented. And if you've done any NLP, you're probably towards oriented. But if you're massively away from, you're risk averse, and you pretty much won't take any risk. You won't do anything. You probably won't leave your house. Yeah, but it's just 2 of the 50. Goal oriented, not leaving the house. Hopefully everybody's at least somewhere around the middle. But if you are around the middle and you are capable of choosing in the moment, in the context, whether you take the risk or not, that's where we want to be. Make sense? So these colours now, let's say we've got 50 of these cognitive intentions, and you've constructed this one type of personality in this context. And then you're on the golf course, which is this one here. And in this one here, you're at a heavy metal concert, because I can tell you probably like heavy metal, right? Right, so the one thing that's common across all of them is some of these cognitive intentions. So you're not really deconstructing and reconstructing everything. Hang on, mate. I know I'm wrong, don't worry. So you're not really deconstructing and reconstructing everything in the moment. What you're doing is deconstructing and reconstructing a few of them that are appropriate for the context. So that's perfect. Yes, sir?
like how I want to say, like you point out the circles, but
Ooh.
there's some bits in like inside the circles that like overlap.
Yes?
Is that like the same, like something that you can't change about like yourself when you're
Yeah,
the thing?
I understand what you're saying. I don't know if it's whether you can't change it or whether you don't need to. More of a need than a want. The green thing is because normally we have this idea of personality, and the idea of personality is a boundary, it's a limitation on how we are. If we had a more permeable boundary, then personality becomes much more malleable. And the green represents the more perforated boundary of personality so that you can put it somewhere else and do whatever you want with it. What I've got in my notes is that what you're looking at here is the anatomy of what we mistake for personality. Each of these boxes is a way of thinking, a cognitive intention, and we cluster them and repeat them and eventually believe that repetition is who we are. Repetition is who we are. Repetition. Right? But identity isn't inside these constructs. It's the space between them. I don't know what that means. I'm probably sure chat wrote that. All right. That's where awareness lives, and that's where choice is born. And what is bushes? And oh, we're not on the golf course, Joy. You can't just do that. And that is where the true growth happens, not in discovering your type like in the MBTI, but in dissolving your boundaries. So whenever you think that you're a certain personality in a certain context, yes?
Oh, sorry. Finish your sentence.
It's too late, I've forgotten. I'm old.
Sorry. I was just wondering, okay, if we're saying that there's no personality, is that the same thing as saying that there's nothing that makes people unique? Like, are we presuming that if we all had the exact same environment and the same genetics and the same, like we would all be the same? Or is there something else that you think is a marker?
So psychology works we allow psychology to work because we all think roughly in similar ways. It's how we code and label those ways that's the issue for me. I don't like introvert and extrovert, and we'll talk about that in a bit because it's on one of my final slides. Yeah? Psychology as a discipline works because we roughly think in similar ways in certain environments. We know what causes trauma, we know what damages the brain, and we know from how brain lesions occur what the brain does and how. So we know that the brain is the lowest common denominator in most of this. Okay, so for those of us over the age of 50, if you are massively internal and don't do external, that's because your brain chooses the path of least resistance in its synaptic processes. We practice then, an intervention would be to do a couple of things that force us, and I mean force us to be external in our thinking for a short time. At my age, about 3 months. At your age, 1 month. Seriously. Yeah, because we can't get over the brain thing. And what that does is it develops different pathways so that your brain can then eventually, in 3 months' time, choose which one it wants. But if it's stuck here, it's always stuck here because your brain always takes the path of least resistance. Yeah? We have to force ourselves to do the opposite for a little while. And you've heard of this. You've heard of even Jungian stuff, and you've heard of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and other types of therapy where they do a similar kind of thing. Yeah? So the image visually deconstructs the illusion of fixed personality by showing that what we call self is in fact a fluid configuration of cognitive intentions. You can have the notes as well, by the way. How about this, right? You are not a fixed thing. You are a constantly updated construction, and your construction kit includes all of this. So if you were at different levels, I've talked about levels, well, what does somebody at each level think about themselves, who they are? Feel free to read it and tell me if you disagree. If you do disagree, we can talk about that. So when you look at 9, and we go back to the questions that were about these two. Oh, sorry, mate. And I say, why do you need to feel loved? Why do I need to make other people feel unloved or loved? When at 9 there is no fixed I. It's just a transient awareness manifesting through constructed forms. I don't know what that means.
I have a book on that.
Yeah, I bet you have. Anybody disagree with any of those? I mean, chocolate. We don't know what chocolate means. What does transient awareness mean? Yes, sir.
I'm a little bit confused about AQA. Just to start, I have a tension between construction and release.
What they're saying is at AQA, you're not quite 9 yet, where you've really let everything go.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we said I don't care what you think, it's not that I don't care, because we know we're human, and we'll at some point I'm going to want to care. If I walk out of here now and everybody hates me, at some level that's going to impact me. I'm not a psychopath or a sociopath. Yeah, my limbic system works ish. Although I'd rather run over a human than a dog. What does that mean?
You like dogs?
Yes, sir.
What does it mean by if someone who is still figuring out, I've been shaped by experience, but I'm working on being more intentional.
Intentional. Remember earlier I said you got intention, awareness, choice and response. So what's your intention right now in asking that question?
To know what it's trying to say by that.
Yeah, because you weren't aware of the response and the answer, exactly that. So that's what it's saying. I'm shaped by. You asked a question based on your intention. What does that tell me about your personality, Brian? Curious is the best thing in the world. What about let's do some proper racism. What does a typical Spaniard look like? What does a typical German look like? I once dated a German lady, and the first time I met her, when she came up to me, she said, "Hello, my name's Heidi, I'm from Germany." And I said, "I know." And she went, "What? What do you mean you know? How do you know?" No, she wasn't doing that before you say it. It's because she looked German. What can I say? She looked German.
She's bald.
She was an old boy with a little tash. What does a typical Filipino look like? Right, I obviously don't mean what do they look like, I mean what do they think like. If you have someone who is bicultural, multicultural, determines for themselves that they are both German and Spanish, how does that identity impact their construction of self? Yes, sir?
Because some German aspects might be mixed with the Spanish aspects.
What about if you look at time though? Germans, as we all know, are, efficient, procedural, whereas Spaniards are lazy. How do you get two contrasting personality types in one person? This is one person, it's a bloke.
It depends on what type of bits mix, because if one of them, depends how much of one it is.
Like that?
Yeah.
See, I've done this before. So, yeah, you're right. So the idea is what we said about the colours, the liquids. Environment is key. In German, this person thinks at these two levels, thinking quotient, awareness quotient. And the way they construct their German brain is like this. And they literally are more concerned about time, whereas the Spanish version is much more relaxed about it. They have Mediterranean time. And the Mediterranean time is this. My friend was invited round, my friend is German, and invited this guy in Spain round for dinner. So he made him dinner that night, never turned up. 2 weeks later, he turned up for dinner. Completely different way of processing time. How does that impact his personality? How does that impact my German mate's personality and thinking he's an idiot? Maybe they're both wrong. So the idea is that depending on which environment you construct your thinking, whether you're German, Spanish, French, whatever. Oh, I've got another one. English and Indonesian. Difficult question for you now. How does culture limit our thinking? How does culture limit our thinking?
It doesn't.
I've got it doesn't.
It doesn't limit, it makes it broader.
How so?
Is it
Because you-
stereotyping?
No.
Because people say, oh, you're being very English, means you're not expressing yourself.
Taking over other countries and things.
You're being very uptight and, and then, because all of these things strike me as being very limiting.
Just call, okay, so when you call a bird, you do it a disservice. When you call someone English, when you call someone German, you already do them a disservice. You already limit them. You already put that boundary around them. Yeah? So if personality is real, how is it different in different environments? Now, I'm not saying that culture limits, but in Indonesia, when I had a chat with this, because I fed these profiles back to the people, so I talked with them as well as have the profiles, they told me how specifically in Indonesia they're more limited in how they're allowed to think. So it did limit their thinking. Yeah. But it's not about the question of whether, it's limiting or not. The most important question is how aware are you of your construction of self in the moment in each culture? Well, I mean, what is it? All my students are from everywhere else, okay? So when I ask them about the British culture, what is the British culture? Who can tell me? Is it you must, if you go for a beer on a Friday, you must have a curry. What is our culture?
It's not Tuesday, is it?
Weatherspoons.
Weatherspoons. My compliments to the microwave technician. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Because we're really talking about how personality isn't real. And in 4 profiles, I can demonstrate how 2 people think and behave differently in different cultures. I'm going to do a study on this. There's, I forgot what it is at work. There's that email that came out. No, it was ESRAD, wasn't it? European Society for Research into Adult Development. It wants some research papers on culture, and I'm going to put this forward and see what happens. Yes, sir?
Even the language that you use and your thinking changes your responses and your
Of course it does.
behaviours in every way. And clearly, if you're naturally thinking Arabic, there's a whole different way than we are in English here.
There is, and this is how you know I'm a lecturer, there is a theory called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that suggests and demonstrates that language creates culture, or language constructs culture, which is why the... Yes, sir?
What if you don't think in language? Because I don't think in a language.
How do you think?
I don't know, I think in something, but not a language.
I'll tell you what, don't think of a blue dog. Do you think in images?
More images,
Who else thought of a blue dog? Did you think of a blue dog? Good lad. Oh, do you have a question? Go on.
So how you said languages define culture values. I'm Romanian and I speak English.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
At home I speak Romanian, and
Is that Italian?
and my parents speak Romanian to me, but when someone asks me what they're saying, I have to translate, find a way, the best meaning of the words.
Is it your friends that are asking?
Yeah.
Just make it up, they won't know. They won't know. Best one I had, I was skiing in Austria, and there was a lady there, and she would speak Italian, German, French, English, like that, to the people coming in the pub. It was absolutely fantastic. What do you call somebody who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call somebody who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. Somebody who speaks 1 language? English. We know. It's true though, isn't it?
I don't know, I'm not English. So
See my point? Is it wrong? Who was it that wasn't really risk? It was the risk aversion. See, you and Calvin couldn't hang out. So how we construct our thinking, right? Which one of those is right? Are they both right? Is that what we're saying?
That one's left.
That one's left.
that's right.
So it depends how you're looking at it.
It depends how they're looking at it. It's their construction.
Or how we're looking at it, because if you look on the right, it looks like the person's going up the stairs.
Yes.
But if you look on the left, it looks like you're going down.
So which one is true?
None of them, because they're all.
Or
both.
we talked about internal earlier, individualist. Is he being internal individualist? Is he choosing not to go with the crowd? Can he choose not to? Yeah, he can. I'm guessing you guys have seen that image before. You never seen it? Be like him. And if you Google him, you'll find his name and everything.
I've got another question.
I know you have.
If
Still only 8 o'clock.
and that, like, what he's doing there is like, it's like you choosing not to do it, but at what cost?
Well, you don't know, do you? Because I don't know if you're aware of what that means.
Yeah.
It's not fair they put a big circle around him and they knew where he was. What about this one? Is that going with the crowd? Is that the community angle? Is it just sameness? Is it a complete lack of creativity? What is it?
Sex stuff.
It's just the back of a bus.
Just an accident.
Yeah, it's just total fluke. That's how I got here tonight. I did that on the way here, Brian. Now, if everyone is constructing themselves one way, how can you consciously stand out and choose to construct yourselves differently? What needs to change in your thinking?
Your conviction.
Yeah, your intentions. I'll go with that. I said intentions because that's part of my theory, but yes.
Your perspective.
Definitely. Sometimes.
Would you orient yourself toward?
So your intention, or is that your attention? And how does the intention impact attention? You don't have to answer, by the way. I'm just asking the questions. You can tell me to shut up at any point. And the reason it becomes difficult is because you can't read the label of the jar you're stuck in. It's a good one, that, isn't it? You can't read the label of the jar you're trapped in. So let's have a quick pause for a second, and I want you to think. Yes. Well, you didn't give me a choice with that one, but go on.
Is the label put by others or by ourselves?
Well, at the very beginning, I asked you for your labels for you, but in reality, you're going to listen to the labels of everybody else. Some people you'll have heard labels about me before I got here, and there's lots of studies. I'll tell you in a second. There's lots of studies on this, and university lecturers was an easy one because what they did was, in a university of 200, 300 students, in one entrance they told all the students that the lecturer was a bit of an arse, and he was just cold and rude. But in the other door, exactly the same lecture theatre, exactly the same lecturer, and the same lecturer, they said, he's lovely, this bloke. He's very warm and friendly. Guess what the students said on the way out? What they were told on the way in. And that's the problem. If you can't choose not to, it becomes an issue. Which is why you should never ever stop questioning things. Question everything. Except me. Shut up. I'll edit that out, it's fine. Go on, we're paused.
Like how someone said about the label. What if you take the label that's most said to you, and that's the label that you want people to see, but people also see in you?
Is your question that you want them to see this label, or you don't want them to see the label?
I'm saying if you're choosing your label, but they're choosing your label.
Oh, I see. Well, I kind of mentioned that earlier. When if you're constructing yourself this way, and you know that however anybody else constructs you is going to be wrong, you don't have to believe what they say. And that's when we started talking about whether I choose who I listen to. Choose who you listen to. If it's kids, ignore them. Kids are idiots. It's true. I was a kid once. All right, so right now, notice the you who is noticing. Notice your intention behind the listening. Are you listening to agree? Are you listening to challenge? Are you listening to learn? Can you choose to listen differently in the moment? How are you thinking about this now? How are you constructing you right now? So whatever label you've got for you, whatever label you've got for me, is it true? So looking at the labels, let's have a quick look at introvert, extrovert. So if you deconstruct introversion using these cognitive shortcuts I mentioned earlier, you get internal, own, individualist, caring for self. You see the point, right? And then you look at extrovert, external, partner, affiliation, which is about relationships. Team player. Who is a team player? Why? Strength in numbers. Can you hide away in the team? Consensus. Who does as they're told at work, at school, or whatever? You have to, you're 12. Who doesn't do as they're told at work? Who goes to HR a lot? What I'm saying is that we can deconstruct the ideas of introvert and extrovert. So the question is, do we separate these two ways of being at our peril? We've already had a couple of people put their hand up as introverts. Can you choose? My question is this. Can you choose in a different context to be an extrovert? I'm seeing some nods. So if you can choose to be introverted and you can choose to be extroverted, the middle is ambivert, by the way, then the labels kind of disappear. What you're actually doing is choosing. In other words, it becomes about how aware you are of your capacity to think internally. Do I care what you think, Brian? Externally. Own, partner, individual, they all merge into one sense of self, one construction. And the more aware you are of how you do these things, the ideas of introvert and extrovert disappear. I didn't do that. That got all confused then, didn't it? By the way, that image behind me, if there were a person, you know what, I won't say it because it might be on one of the slides. I don't know what's on my slides. Do we see the point? Yes, sir.
Where does like neurodivergence?
I was waiting for that question. I have no idea. I've never looked at it, and I can't be any clearer than that. I don't know is the answer. I only take the people who want to do my profile and look at those. I've got profiles of sociopaths and psychopaths, and I've got one specific profile of I've forgotten. It's not Asperger's, and I know we don't use the term anymore, but that kind of thing. But I've forgotten. But it does come out, but I've not focused on it, so I couldn't tell you.
What is a psychopath?
I could literally show you the slide in a minute if you want. And all it boils down to is things like phenomenally internal, a lot of sameness, but it's deconstructible using this framework. I've literally got a slide on it. If you're interested, I'll show you the slide. As Louise will tell you, I have a slide for everything. Everything. And this is what we see. So you've fallen into a pattern, and you get up in the morning, you do your thing, you go to work, you go to school, you behave the way you behave, you don't really think about it. In psychology terms, it's called automaticity. You just do what you do, don't you? I am what I am who I am, I do what I do, and I get on with it. And we mistake that for your identity. Yeah? So how much more conscious will you be of how you are in the moment? Tomorrow. Yes, sir?
Like you said, you can change your personality, but can you change your identity?
I can. I used to be Barbara. You can construct yourself. You can draw yourself. At AQ8 we construct our map, and at AQ9 we construct the territory, which is why it doesn't exist. Korzybski said the map is not the territory. You heard of that? The map is not the territory. And we did that with chocolate earlier. Your map isn't my map. It's just your map of this territory. And we're all going to experience our worlds and realities completely differently. That's Escher, I think.
Are all realities equally valid?
Can you expand on that?
Well, it seems like what you're saying is you see the world one way, everyone sees the world differently. Are you saying that, therefore, everything goes, anything goes, because we all see things differently, and that's okay?
I don't have a problem with that, but
So you use phrases like right and wrong.
there is no right, there is no wrong, but thinking makes it so. So for me, it doesn't. There is ethics and morals and things like this. Depends on how deep you want to go, and whether you read Kant and Heidegger and all this stuff. So it just depends. For me, it doesn't really mean a lot. The difference is this: at AQ5, at the lowest levels, we'll have a very fixed idea of what morality is. At AQ9, we rely on other people to keep us honest. And it's just, depending on your level of complex thinking, depends on how you'll think about morality, complexity, reality. How I construct my reality at my level of thinking is different to how a 12-year-old constructs his reality because he's not as complex as me, which is not a fair comparison, but you get the point. All right, you are, but don't tell anyone. Yeah? So the levels of complexity cloud your question, and I don't think, I'll talk to you about it afterwards, by all means. Yeah? So what I've got for you now is, as we start to finish up, I've got the last couple of 100 slides, is that really, we're going to do the lighthouse metaphor in a second, and disrupted attention is usually the result of an unconscious keeper, lighthouse keeper. Ah, you can't really read it. I know there's a lot there. Do you want me to shut up and you can read it? Thanks. That's why I asked you about intention and attention. You can have these slides and the notes underneath. So if we were to use this from a client perspective, maybe a coaching or a therapy perspective, and the client seems distracted or fixated or misaligned, don't just ask what they're paying attention to. Ask why, how, and who is guiding the beam. Because we're not aware that it's us, it's you, it's me. I'm directing my own beam. But because of this automaticity, because we just do what we do, we are who we are, we forget that we're doing it, we're responsible for it, we can choose not to. If you do this from a position of intention and awareness, how aware are you of your intention, which is what you said earlier? If you do this from a position of intention and awareness, well, your personality is no more real than the lighthouse. If you can choose where you put your beam, Choose how you focus on it, what it's paying attention to. Make sense? You're welcome to, obviously you can have the slides, that's fine. And you can take your own time to read it.
Excuse me, could you go back to
No.
just 1 second? I'd love to take a picture.
Which way?
The one before.
This before this?
Yes,
You can have the slides.
it was incredibly beautiful.
I made it.
Thank
I painted it this morning.
you. Really?
Not true.
Definitely not true. Yes, sir.
Like how you said you can change anything. Can you, like, you can choose to change anything. Can you choose to not just live? Like,
That's a bit deep. Should I answer it?
go on then.
I think it would be inappropriate for me to answer it. I'm a psychologist, I'm not a, you know. I can circulate the images on a web link. It's on my web link. You can have all the images as well, so you can take the image. That's absolutely fine. But what this is about, this one is just keep thinking. That's Calvin and Hobbes again. Keep thinking about your thinking. What is your thinking in the largest possible context? I know it's a bit of navel gazing, but it's interesting. And Calvin's looking up and wondering why we're just a speck, which is what he says in the cartoon. Any thoughts? That's the penultimate slide. Any thoughts?
You're only 70 quid, not 35. There's 2.
Oh, damn it. I
I
hope.
thought there were 3.
Was there 3?
I counted 3.
Oh, there wasn't there?
You're just trying to.
That's 100.
105.
It's going up.
With the like personality, so are you saying that like people can have their own purpose and attention and that's okay and like it doesn't matter, or do you think that people should have aligned purpose and then be able to have similar choices because we'll have similar attention? Or
Yes, you can do all of that. You could have your own, or you can have a aligned one. It depends on you and the context and the environment. You can choose to have your own and understand how it impacts others. You can choose to do a community-based one and understand how it impacts you. It's entirely up to you. But the point isn't whether you have one or the other. The point is how aware of it are you? How are you constructing you in that moment? Are you doing it from a position of awareness? If you're just going along with the community because you're going along with the community, then you're not in control. It's a habit.
if the community will have the same purpose, then you'll be able to make aligned choices. Which
Okay.
is good.
I understand that. If the community purpose is your purpose, it's not really a community purpose, it's yours. And what you're doing is aligning with other people who have the same purpose as you. It's just that there's 5 of them, or 20 of them, but it's your purpose. However you look at it. They say there is no I in team. There is. Right, so it's your purpose. You might be aligned with others, but it's still yours. Does that make sense? How aware are you of that? And because you asked the question, I'm going to say you're more inclined for community thinking than you are individual. It's you doing it. Just so happens that you might find other people wanting to do the same thing, but it's still your purpose. Yeah? In my humble opinion, you can see how humble I am. Any other thoughts? Any questions?
Yeah, I got like lots of thoughts.
Can I just ask if anybody else thought that too?
I think the opposite.
Yeah.
And so,
And I just want to say, and so where does oneness come in?
so my job here is done because you said A and you said B, and I'm happy with that, right? That's what I want. I want you to make your own meaning. I don't care what their meaning is, right? Socrates said, I can't teach you anything. All I can do is make you think, and that's all I intend to do. Now, I don't believe in I teach culture at university, and Hofstede, this bloke, talks about individualist versus, come on Jeff, you've done it. I can't remember, I stood here, I can't remember. Yeah, so you're looking at individuals, so you've got high context cultures and low context cultures. And I'll give you an example of a low context culture, which is Japan. which is talking about it's the opposite of individualism, right? Where America is quite individualist, but in Japan, there's a lady called Erin Meyer, and she was giving a talk to a Japanese audience of an American company in Japan. And she got to the end of her talk and she said, right, I'm done with my talk now. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. And she sat down. And the Japanese lady next to her said, would you mind if I asked a question? Because I reckon there's some questions. She said, yeah, okay. So the Japanese lady stood up and said, I have any questions? And she looked around and went, yes, sir, you have a question. And Erin Meyer's like, what the hell I just asked? And she said, any more questions? Yes, madam, you've got a question, right? So when the Japanese lady sat down next to Erin, who's an American lady, French-American lady, she said, what did you do differently? I asked the same question. And she said, well, we have this thing in Japan called reading the air. If they don't have any questions, they won't look at you. They won't make eye contact. Everybody here makes eye contact. Almost everybody here makes eye contact. But in Japan, they don't. So when she looked around and said, do you have a question? Everybody's looking down except the one that's got a question. And that's all she did. So the next day, Erin gave another talk and she said, does anybody have any questions? And she looked around and went, yes, madam. And it worked. That kind of culture took 2,500 years to get together because it's reading the air requires a unity that individualists like America just cannot do. Does that make sense? I'm not advocating for individualism or team player or community or whatever. You do what you want. But I think if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. I have no problem with that. Yeah? And I love the fact that you got different things out of it. Yes, sir?
Just a thought, is what you are presenting here is then I have a choice in the personality I choose.
Yes.
So does that mean that the whole that we can discuss the LGBTQ identities as such?
Which ones?
All of them. Can you then say, okay, are you aware that you choose? It's your choice to belong to this group.
It's everybody's choice to belong to a group, but you don't choose to be gay or straight. You can join any group you want, but that's not the same as being gay or being straight. I don't remember choosing to be straight when I was a kid. As far as I remember. Being bisexual instantly doubles your chances of pulling on a Saturday night.
Okay, but all the others then? Because that's pretty black and white.
So, no, so from
we have invented all the other groups.
So the difference, for me, the difference between, I've done a little bit of research in this, and the difference between sex and gender, sex is in your pants, gender is in your brain. All right, and it all depends on the SRY gene and whether it attaches to the Y chromosome or the X chromosome, and you can have male females and female males. You literally can have about 6 sexes in humans alone. There's 250,000 sexes in fungi. There's 25 sexes in lizards. Humans are not unique in that sense. We have more than 2 sexes. That's a biological fact. You don't choose it, it's your brain. My son is gay, and his name's Gabriel, and I said to him once, you're gay because I called you Gabriel, and you heard gay, Briel, your whole life. And then he punched me. Right? So it's most definitely your brain. I can give you one specific test right now that was neuroscience based. They gave a gay man and a straight woman the same test, put the things on their brain, the ECGs, and the responses for the gay man and the straight woman were roughly the same parts of the brain firing up. If it's the same part of the brain firing up for the gay man as it is a straight woman, what does the gay man think like? It's not rocket surgery. Yeah, it's your brain. You don't choose to be straight or gay, blah, blah, blah. If I could choose, I'd choose to be 6'5", for God's sake, instead of 6 foot. Shut up.
Is it possible to rewire the brain?
Absolutely, neuroplasticity, even at my age. Which is why I said, if you know that the person, if you know someone who is phenomenally internal, doesn't give a monkeys about what you think, then you ask them to put themselves in someone else's shoes, do it subtly. What do you think they think about this? And it's called theory of mind in psychology. It's one of the reasons why they think consciousness arose. Theory, I needed to know whether my neighbours were good or bad or trying to kill me, right? So if you know somebody who is very internal, doesn't care about anything that anybody else says, ask them specifically to put themselves in other people's shoes for 6 months until they rewire their brain to allow it. It works. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Yeah, so, well, just the point, though, again, just, I can rewire my brain to become more extrovert,
Yeah, of course.
but it's not okay to rewire my brain to change my sexual orientation, or is,
Which one's useful?
well, both of them are
Society
in a
living, I guess.
context. But I'm just saying, is that possible for both?
It's a brilliant question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't profess to know if it was possible.
Yeah.
I know it from my research. I've never profiled gay people and wondered if I could make them straight.
Yeah. Or vice
I
versa.
think I've turned a lot of women gay. Does that count?
You know, it's an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it really is an important point what you're saying. At what point,
Sorry, I made myself laugh then.
at what point do we decide we're rewiring? At what point do we go, well, no,
Well,
it's just who we are?
There is a conversion therapy in America, and it's frowned upon, and the research shows it's not possible. I know that. I mean, if we're looking at construction, and someone, so tell me this, right? I don't know the answer to your question. I'm not going to pretend I do. But if someone who is gay and is forced by their church in America to think they're not gay, and goes through the conversion therapy, and at the end of it they're convinced they're not gay and they act as a heterosexual male for the rest of their lives, are they still gay?
Well, I understand the conversion there is hugely damaging, isn't it?
Definitely.
Is it physiologically possible?
Well, I mean, if you damage the brain in some way, yeah.
I mean,
That's how we know how the brain works, is just by the lesions and the breaks. And Phineas Gage back in 1890, if you all know the story, where he got a railroad spike through his eye and the prefrontal cortex, it turned him into a nasty man, whereas he was lovely beforehand. And that's when the natural philosophers, which is what the psychologists were called in the science, realised that your brain had something to do with your personality rather than your heart. And that's when they started looking at the brain. So yeah, we only know how the brain works because people break it. But I mean, I've thought of the same question. I've never found anything that says we can make someone gay, we can make someone straight.
Yeah, no, please go on. No, I was just saying, it's just choosing that example, you know. It's, at what point do we think, yeah, let's rewire brains, and at what point are we going, well, no, we shouldn't rewire that?
I think it might be to do with the position of where it is in the brain that's going to be the main function of it. You might be able to rearrange literally the prefrontal cortex, which is your executive decision-making section here at the front, but I don't suppose you're going to be able to do anything at the back, your hippocampus or anything like that at the back. I suspect you can't rewire that because that's not rewirable. Yeah, so where does being gay sit in the brain? That would be an interesting question. Maybe for another talk, though. Any other thoughts? Is it on my research or we're going to talk about gays? Sorry, the gays. I have to say the gays. Yeah.
Sorry, I had it. Okay, yeah. So we kind of talk about changing personality in terms of like rewiring pathways at the moment.
Yes.
Where does it kind of sit? Where does just changing maybe your personality through like sheer willpower or like, you know, let's
What's
say
the difference?
Yeah. Like,
No, what's the difference?
So, to me, if I talk about like willpower or just a decision, it sounds quite instant. Whereas the rewiring aspect sounds a little bit more deliberate and planned and over a period of time. So,
I like it. So for me, will is only free at the point of awareness. Write that down. That's pretty good. Will is only free at the point of awareness. What you're saying is you become aware. That awareness has changed how you think.
So what about, for example, I don't know, if I've got a fear of heights.
Me too. That's a physiological response.
Yeah, is that in a
Yeah, it's apparently because your brain can't process distance.
No, I'm just using an example.
That's why I'm happy. That's why I'm happy I'm not very tall.
Yeah.
I get a nosebleed looking off a curb. So.
but that's something you can change.
It is all you can. Sorry, did you say you can or you can't?
Phobias you can change.
Of course you can. You have a fast phobia cure. You have immersion therapy. Of course.
So if can't change that, why can't you change being gay?
I'm going to Google it when I get home, right? It's fine. This is the point, isn't it? How have we got here? Doesn't matter. It's good. Any other thoughts? Who thought I was wrong the whole time, apart from you?
Thank you so much, Darren. Really lovely, stimulating conversation. What was your intention in presenting to us tonight?
Check out the big brain at the back. My intention really was to say, how aware are you of your construction of you in the moment? That's it. How aware are you? We think we're aware. We're not aware. Yeah, we think we're aware, but we're so habituated that we don't stop and step back enough. And if tonight I can show you that there's a couple of different ways that you can think about your thinking, then we're done. That's perfect. Yeah, and the fact that I've got two people coming away with two different messages means I've done something right. Any thoughts?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, guys. I've got a book coming out. Oh, I get this. What's this one? Thank you very much. Got hay fever.